Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the built environment. This session is a replacement session because our scheduled Wednesday or Thursday meeting had to be cancelled because I had a full day agenda, and apparently my partner also had other things to do. So here we are. Right. So please do mark your attendance if you haven't done so already. I'll show the QR code again at the end of the class, just before we end. Sorry, I'm a bit under the weather right now, but should be all right. Okay. So last week I introduced to you the term built environment and why we use the term built environment rather than constructed environment or any other terms. Well, because built avoids the artificial connotation or synthetic connotations, and building is something that I mentioned that building is something that if not all living species take part in, participate in. So there are 6 or 7 components that make up the built environment, from earth, regions, cities, landscapes, structures, interiors, and product. And over the next few weeks, we will be discussing these components, starting from the things that we interact with in our immediate vicinity. Products. So we'll start with products, then we'll move on next week to interior structures and so on. So products constitute industrial and product design. So anything that is man-made, things that we use every day, from the humble coffee mug to the more complex items. And why are products situated at the bottom of the hierarchy? It's because products are the first and most basic building blocks of the built environment. Products are so numerous that they're often overlooked and taken for granted, yet they are of fundamental importance to everyone. In the most basic sense, the ability to create products distinguishes humans from other species of the animal kingdom. Products enable us to pursue many diverse activities and support human endeavors, both noble and ignoble. We know that animals, some animals, they produce or they use tools, but not to the extent that that humans do it. So because the tools that animals produce, they extend their capacities, but they are usually of rudimentary quality, and it's usually a one-off product, or one-off tool or one-off product. So once they use it, that's it. They're not going to reuse it again. Human-made products extend not only human capacities but also responsibilities. With a stone axe or spear, one may have dominance over a few, but a red button connected to a nuclear arsenal provides the capacity to control or to destroy the world. Now, this creates huge responsibilities, of course, and consequently, when dealing with products, it is important to connect human intellectual capacities to create with human and environmental responsibilities. the simplest products, I mentioned the coffee mug or a soda pop can be produced many times and collectively consume large amounts of resources. And they cause considerable human environmental impacts if they are not reused or recycled properly. And I think that's a common issue with our environment right now, that we consume a lot more than we need, and ultimately we produce a significant amount of waste, thus impacting the environment. Now, I think you may find it enjoyable and challenging to observe and analyze the products that surround you, and help you perform your everyday activities. Many products are usually made from multiple materials that are products themselves. Say, for example, an electronic device, a tablet or a mobile phone, then it is a product that is made up of countless other products. So the PCB is a product in itself. The transistors and the screen, the buttons and the sensors, they are products themselves. So now, the following slide defines various products and their implied purposes and meanings. So we'll take books, for example. Books convey an author's ideas. They convey an author's concerns through humanly created letters arranged in words, sentences, paragraphs, and chapters, and the created language of civilizations. Glasses or spectacles extend the human capacity to see, while microscopes and telescopes allow us to study the worlds that are much smaller and much larger in scale than our normal vision can perceive. Clothing help us. Clothing keep us comfortable and warm. They also sometimes help us convey moods. I wear black. I'm not in a very friendly mood right now, or I'm wearing white because I'm in my formal mode, or I'm going to wear rainbow colored shirt because I'm feeling very cheerful. So our clothes may or may not express informal or formal values and such. Then machines and appliances, they help people cook, wash, create, and they can envelope our life with music and enable us to communicate with other individuals from distant places. And just immediately surround us, I'm sure there are walls that surround us. And these walls are made of a variety of products that help mediate the external climate. They are designed to define the quality of spaces for almost all life activities within the confines of those walls. Phones, as I said, they connect us to friends, family. They also connect us to emergency services when we need them. I hope we never need them, but they are there. They are there for us if we need them. And these little gadgets also connect us with our associates, with companies, and pretty much anyone and anything around the world. And if we look at phones today, they're basically pocket-sized handheld computers. And computers were once room size. They're now pocket-sized that allow us to explore the World Wide Web, communicate with others, saving us. They can save and contain huge amounts of information, carry out extensive work, and we can also enjoy electronic games in them. So such an advancement that we have made. that separates us to the common or to the other animal species. Now, human beings cannot survive in isolation. In order to live, they need air, water, food, light, and are therefore dependent on their surroundings. We are dependent on our surroundings. They're just a part of a much larger whole. We are a part of something much larger than us, than ourselves. And so beyond the bare necessities, the human race impulsively modifies the environment to create objects and to provide shelter and protection. Now, people from prehistoric times to the present have deliberately shaped utensils, tools, clothes, weapons. They have produced or composed rituals or decorative artifacts as extensions of themselves. For example, I mentioned something about clothing earlier, and clothes are created to improve thermal protection, and tools and weapons are developed to extend the use of our hands to perform tasks beyond their original capabilities. And now these objects are found in a variety of forms in different parts of the world, depending on how each culture translates the function and needs. Objects made for the same use may vary considerably in different places according to local materials, local traditions, and to different levels of ingenuity and skills. Now, an axe, for example. An axe is a familiar object with a known purpose, just like a fork or a cup or a bowl. Once you look at it, you know what it's for. An axe is for chopping things. A fork is to help you eat. A bowl is something to help us eat as well. Consume our daily needs of sustenance. Now, this familiarity is visible in the external shape of the object, like a fork, bowl, and stuff. It communicates its purpose without words, thus creating a visual language. Now, certain objects communicate what they are by the familiarity of what they do, their function. We observe them performing their function, and therefore we know what they are. Others communicate through appearance, their form. We recognize their form and we know their function. Some objects don't possess any practical function, but they have qualities that are purely aesthetic or symbolic, like tattoos, for example. What practical function do they purpose? None. Tattoos are generally viewed as a media or as an expression of aesthetics or something symbolic. Take a look at traditional tattoos in societies such as the Maori people. The more tattoos they have, that signifies their position in society and so on. So it's purely symbolic. They were made to be looked at and enjoyed, or to convey ideas and meanings. Perhaps someone might have a tattoo of their children's names, or of their children's faces, or of their partner's name, and so on. So their significance or even beauty may not be immediately understood by those who are not familiar with the culture, so to say. But the growth of an aesthetic sense or the comprehension of complex symbolism may require some sort of process of learning. You go walk into an art gallery, take a look at a painting. Sometimes you have to look at it multiple times, a number of times before you actually grasp the complex symbolism that it conveys. Now, today, I think as never before, there are objects that are so common that they can be seen anywhere. the humble transistor radio. They can be seen all over the world, and it's a universally recognized object. I'm not sure if people actually still buy radios anymore, but that's just an example of something that is so common, or what was once common. Perhaps now it's even now it's a lot rare because well, we have radios in our mobile phones nowadays. The bicycle is another example. It's an object of universal human culture. They're everywhere in their different shapes and sizes. Other articles or other products are universally used, but they have distinct differences from country to country. Brooms, for example, brooms, sapu, in Britain and in the United States, they're made of different materials, and they are of contrasting shape, even though the availability of materials and the job that they have to do are basically the same in both countries. So although the broom may be universally known, such differences in materials and use emerge from and contribute to a national identity. Now, some unique cultural or symbolic objects can also be identified with a particular region. Take a look at the London buses, for example. Red double-decker buses. If you see them, then you immediately know that okay, I am in London, because they've become so synonymous with it. Or maybe the red public phone booth. Or another thing, another example of something that is very that gives you a very strong sense of place. The totem pole. The totem pole is a recognizable and representative object of the Pacific Northwest coastal region of Canada and the United States. You find totem poles here and there. Now, until very recently, most human life was dominated by the larger environmental context. Natural environments were used and understood by hunters, by sailors, and by fishermen, fisherfolk, with very little significant modification. Now, these people needed what such environments could offer and use what they could obtain from them to create their artifacts, to create their objects, their shelters, their huts and tents, their implements, their tools, and their boats. Aboriginal people, for example, sometimes affected considerable change in their surroundings, but their impacts were specific as to organisms and locales. I think in older societies, the nature remained dominant, and I think only in the past 4,000 to 5,000 years, with the advent of agriculture, towns and cities, has nature's dominance or domination, nature's dominance or domination seemed to have gradually diminished. I think only in the past 200 years has this relationship altered to such a degree that human experience now seems primarily one of humanly made places and things, the built environment. Now, how much power or dominion humans have over nature is debatable, and as we are consistently reminded of nature's power and devastating impact on the built environment through cataclysmic events such as hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis and tornadoes, and I think more recently the subtle, very subtle changes to natural systems that occur as a result of humanly made products such as automobiles, air conditioner, fertilizers, and soap. So climate change, for example, it's a very subtle thing, climate change, but we all feel the significance of its impact. I think it is safe to say that our homes today still contains objects like tables, chairs, television, telephones, lights, washers, washing machines, dryers, maybe, sinks, and of course toilets. And many of these other products must be connected beyond the limits of the house to a complex of roads, sewers, electric lines, and other external systems, which are commonly referred to as infrastructure. Now, the home, as we know it, has become divorced from its natural surroundings and turned into a small part of a much larger network of support systems, all of which can fail on short notice or without notice at all. Take the random blackouts that happen, especially during a thunderstorm. All of a sudden, a transformer would explode, and a whole city block may shut down and experience blackouts. So, in its simplest form, a house or a shelter itself can exist without artificial connections to an external support system. But and because the shelter was originally for people's protection. However, it's changed so much. It's become a place of display, or become a place to display our many possessions and express ourselves up to a certain extent. Now, products are also connected to natural resources and to the natural systems of the earth, often in highly industrialized societies. For example, in the United States or Europe, a single design is manufactured into many thousands, sometimes millions and even billions of individual products, and such that it can cause significant loss of resources and corresponding environmental impacts. For example, the design of an aluminium soda can may appear quite simple. It's a relatively small product, but if you reproduce that product billions of times, it will consume significant amounts of resources. The design of ordinary products affects everyone. Objects that we use every day can give us pleasure or cause serious problems with human, environmental, and technical systems. A tea kettle, for example, that doesn't pour, or a door handle with a rough surface that can potentially hurt your hand. They're in direct contrast to a kettle that can pour water beautifully, or a handle that is silky smooth finish, caresses your hand when you turn the doorknob. Now, the following section is concerned with ordinary everyday objects and with the design processes and professions that make their realization possible. Now, the transition from the traditional craftsperson to the contemporary industrial designer is explored over the next few slides in its historical context. So, in the Middle Ages, most people had few possessions. In the great medieval halls of the time, the king, the queen, or the lord was provided with an elevated platform, throne, or chair to sit in and survey the fine silver or gold plates on the table, stained glass in the windows, tapestries on the walls, and very costly table linen. So important were all these objects that when royalty moved from house to house, everything was taken by horse and wagon to furnish the next house. Even the glass in windows were removed, and everything was designed from the glass to the chair to withstand these rough journeys. Now, the humble chair, we've inherited the term chair as a Western title to designate success as a leader in a position of authority. So not just a chair that we can sit in, but chair also signifies our position. It is not only the Lord who has the chair, it can now be chair of the board, for example, a term that comes to us directly from the elevated status of that important chair at a medieval table. The table at which royalty was seated was known as the board. And that's exactly what it was, a board on trestles. Such historic roots are still symbols of contemporary society. We still refer to the chair as one who sits above the board of directors. Throughout the world and throughout most of history, craftspeople or artisans working at skilled trades, pottery, cabinet making, weaving, or metalwork, they learned their skills from their parents, who in turn had been taught by their own parents. In Western society, your family name would signify your profession in society, your skills, the skills that you possess. For example, Thatcher, such as Margaret Thatcher. But the name Thatcher itself means a roof maker, someone who makes roofs or who fixes fishing nets. That's what they're called, Thatcher. A common, or perhaps you've also heard of a German name called Schumacher. Schumacher, as the name implies, if you translate it into English, shoemaker. So perhaps their ancestors, for example, the great Formula One driver Michael Schumacher, perhaps his ancestors were shoemakers. Cobbler, in English, would be cobbler. So last name signifies their skills and their profession. So these skills are passed down from generation to generation, or maybe if they didn't learn it from their parents, or their parents had learned it from their own parents, they were apprenticed. They learned these skills as an apprentice to experience artisans at a young age. First, perhaps they might even pay the artisans for the privilege of learning, and later they receive modest pay, and finally they themselves become masters of their craft. And subsequently, they have apprentices of their own. Now, this system ensured proper training and understanding of the work, from selecting raw materials to manufacturing, finishing, and selling whatever was produced. Originality was rarely important to such workers. Their role was to make what was needed according to traditional standards, and perhaps to refine or modify standard designs to suit particular needs. Occasionally, outstanding artisans produced new designs that were greatly admired, and thus they initiated new traditions or styles. Now, age-old traditions of handwork by skilled artisans were challenged and in some cases brought to an end by the Industrial Revolution. The improved design of the steam engine by James Watt in the late 18th century was a catalyst in the development of factory production. The use of certain chemicals in iron production made possible the casting of large sections of iron required for machines of industrial production. So by the 19th century, many articles previously made by craftspeople at home were made in factories. Now, with the coming of the machine, standards in both visual and functional design rapidly changed. In the Victorian era, machines could instantly stamp out elaborate effects that would have taken a craftsperson days or weeks to create. So, what happens to the artist or the craftsperson today? In the spirit of the arts and crafts movement, which stressed the satisfaction that individuals can derive from working creatively with their hands, many artistic people chose to work in one of the crafts. So artists or craftspeople today have mostly been educated at a university or art school, but they work like the medieval artisans, from selecting materials to finishing and even selling the product. Artists or craftspeople design things through direct contact with the customers. Their working methods, however, may not be the same as those in the days of medieval crafts apprenticeships. And they have emerged from the anonymity of the artisan to become artists known by name, of whom patrons expect some sort of originality. Now, exhibitions in contemporary galleries show an abundance of examples of the high standards and refinements that a contemporary artist or craftsperson can attain, from original conception to final completion of the object. The industrial designer of today, they stand as a bridge between the old world of the craftsperson and the incredibly sophisticated world of mass production. The best of them integrate the highest aspects of human, environmental, and technological systems. Industrial designers have seldom been trained in a particular trade or to work with a specific material. They're often educated professionals. Have a look at product design, product and interior design students, for example. They don't work with specific materials only. They're often they are engineers, basically engineers who, through special studies, become qualified to supervise and coordinate the complicated process on which industrial production is based. Modern day industrial designers stand between the customer and the manufacturer with the moral duty to protect the customer's interests, of course. They act as coordinators of many different specialists, technicians, artisans, manufacturers, and salespeople. I think collaboration is the key to success in the design processes today. However, even in contemporary days, in the contemporary age, we still value the traditional craftsperson. I think we still highly value them even today. For example, I think I saw a documentary maybe a few weeks ago on the production and assembly of a Rolls-Royce factory. Everything is most things are industrial engineered, using industrial machines, assembled using industrial machines. But then there are some parts of the car that is still worked on by the traditional craftsperson, say the wood panels and even the pinstriping that adorn the sides of a Rolls-Royce car. I think in all of the United Kingdom, there's only that one person that does the pinstriping, and he does it manually without a ruler or any other tools, just a brush, paint, and then he would take and then he would create that unifying line along the body of the car. So no two cars are the same. Now, the potential benefits to society of advanced technology and improved materials are obvious. For example, the development of North American bathrooms, kitchens, laundry rooms with their numerous appliances have given us improved health, comfort, and convenience, proper sanitation, and whatnot. Now, we might expect that the entire built environment and all the objects that constitute it would show a similar improvement. Unfortunately, this hope has not been fulfilled. We have the means, but it seems that collectively we lack the wisdom and resolution to address these improvements. I think somehow people of today seem to expect that the quality of life should be completely satisfactory. Adequate food, clothing, housing, work, leisure, and means of transport. The satisfaction of all these is usually taken for granted by the majority of people in developed countries. And paradoxically, we haven't succeeded collectively in designing a coherent and meaningful environment to compete with all its constituent parts. The human ability to identify and solve material problems seem somewhat inexhaustible, but the ability to anticipate the impact of unlimited production remains comparatively weak. We're only just beginning to realize the collective result of the accelerating multitude of individual decisions and consumer habits. It's hard for us to absorb the it's hard for us to absorb the fact that each of us individually contribute actively to massive large-scale problems caused by our desire for more and more product. Now, the common way of thinking about objects is to view them as separate, isolated units, unconnected with anything else. The process of making an object with its need of materials, tools, and power too often seem too remote from the finished product and our immediate convenience. Take a look at the automobile, for example. The car is a product that was invented and designed in the light of a certain ideal vision, a vision of easy, efficient, independent mobility, and of an attractive, seductive, powerful object that each of us can own. Only in recent years have the full consequences of its extensive use begun to catch up with and overtake its advantages. The automobile creates a need for costly and irreplaceable construction materials and a seemingly insatiable demand for increasingly scarce operating fuel, and an extensive landscape of roads and parking lots. So it seems like an innocent product, but it does have huge implications to the environment and the resources. Automobiles also create extreme problems of safe operation. A multi-ton it becomes a multi-ton carcass when it becomes inoperative. What are you going to do with a car after it becomes inoperable? You can't fix it anymore. So it just becomes a 2-ton or a 4-ton lump of steel, aluminium, and plastic. So, and cars also need, they create a diffused landscape of sprawling development that foster more and more auto-dependent lifestyles, more and more traffic, and more congestion, air pollution, and other related health problems. Ultimately, global warming. Now, tragically, as this product multiplies, it takes huge amounts from individual, family, and city budgets. How many deaths per year do you think automobiles cause? Quite significant, quite a lot. What about electric vehicles like this white thing here? Well, their batteries are very costly to make, and just like its fossil fuel counterparts, the resources needed to assemble those batteries are also limited. So, industrial designers obviously must have a sense of responsibility for human, social, environmental, and technical sets of issues. From the manufacturer who commissioned a design to global users and consumers. As professionals, they also have a responsibility to society now and in the future. Everyone involved today in creating the complex built environment and its individual components must be willing to confront many issues and concerns that are all too easy to neglect. A comprehensive, sustainable approach to product design must consider not only the effective design of the product, but also the context in which it is to be placed. More specifically, the designer today, the planners today need to consider such human, environmental, and technical issues such as those described here. What are the environmental impacts of the object? How does it affect resources? Does it produce waste? Is it safe? What is its impact on human health? And so on and so on and so on. So everything is connected to everything else. That is a widely quoted statement about the world in which we live. And I think many designers are beginning to grasp the essence of this statement and are considering total implications and full production cycle of what they create, where the raw materials come from, the efficiency of their production, the energy and resources used, and pollution expended, the longevity of product usefulness, and if it can be reused or recycled, and so on. Now, this complete cycle analysis is not a cradle to grave or beginning to end of life design, but it's commonly referred to as cradle to cradle design, birth, life, and beginning of a new life through reuse and recycling. But while keeping a hamburger or hot dog warm in a styrofoam container or recharging the air conditioner in a personal automobile can erode the ozone layer, we still have massive problems to resolve. When we choose exotic woods to enhance their design, it can contribute to the destruction of tropical forests and ultimately to the deterioration in the quality of the atmosphere. And neither the design nor the resulting object seems so personal or so isolated from the immensity of the earth. How does it affect the resources, availability and sustainability of the scarce materials? Now, if designing a more powerful, more fuel-efficient car means a faster drawdown of petroleum supplies, leaving less for future generations, or if invasion of wilderness areas by loggers and mechanized tourists means less appreciation of nature by future generations or degradation of ecosystem health, then the decision to design, to manufacture, or to buy that car transcends the personal, the pocketbook, or even the gross national product. So we must really, really consider renewable resources within the cradle-to-cradle design approach. Does it produce waste? Designers and consumers need to be concerned not only with the products, but also with the byproducts. It's an object designed so that all of it is consumed or used up. Is it designed to be recycled or deliberately designed to be disposable? Is packaging necessary? Is the packaging excessive? And if needed, is it biodegradable, or will it be found in landfills or littering roadways, even harming wildlife decades after the time of purchase and use? We must consider the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle in cradle-to-cradle design. For example, if you buy a new mobile phone or a new laptop, they usually come in a very large, often much larger than need be, boxes that contain only the gadget itself and perhaps 1 or 2 accessories. The rest of it is just cardboard. Is it safe? So do designers think about whether they would want their own children to wear the flammable dress they just created, or is caring lessened by the faceless, nameless people who will eventually buy the product? Is protection or profit the bottom line? And lastly, what's its impact on human health? So who designs cigarettes? Who designs the seductive packaging and the colorful, the attractive advertising that we see on television and everywhere around us? Considering what we know now about tobacco's impact on human health, what are the ethical considerations for the designers to do such thing? How far do their responsibilities extend? So do we consider the total impact of each product design? Pollution not only occurs during manufacturing, but also is caused by all the transportation needed to bring the product to life and during the use of many products. Currently, there is considerable concern over the many chemicals that are used in products. Many of them compromise human health and are known to off-gas or release their chemicals into the air after they are manufactured and while being used. Artificial fragrances in perfumes, deodorants, shampoos, dryer sheets, and so on are known to cause health problems in some people with multiple chemical sensitivity. The off-gassing chemicals accumulate in the interior and can cause indoor air quality problems in homes, commercial spaces, and office interiors. Products are a most important building block of the entire built environment, and many of them exist in great numbers, multiplying far faster than the world's population. Some have enduring usefulness and beauty, others may be initially attractive, but are wasteful and ultimately destructive. Society and industrial design now and in the future must creatively respond to the many advances in human, social, environmental, and technological factors, as well as work towards a more sustainable society. These are the references that I quoted to put together these slides. I now invite you to perhaps offer a comment or two if you would like, or ask any relevant questions regarding the material I just delivered. Okay. Otherwise, I'll leave it at that for the time being. Next week, we will proceed in our scheduled class as usual. It's only this week that it's only this week that it's unique. I hope I won't have any other surprise agendas throughout next week. I certainly hope. I certainly think I don't, but you never know. So for those of you who were late to join, please do mark your attendance before you forget to do so by scanning the QR code in front of you. And otherwise, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy, and I'll see you again next week. Have a great weekend, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.